Welcome to Inside Athletic Training, a podcast from the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society, where Major League and Minor League athletic trainers share insight into athletic training at the highest level. This week on Inside Athletic Training, we sit down with Matt Lucero, the head athletic trainer for the Texas Rangers. Enjoy the show. All right, Matt, welcome to Inside Athletic Training. We're super happy to have you on for our 21st episode. To get started with this being a PBATS podcast, I'd love to get your thoughts about the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainer Society, also known as PBATS, and just how the society has grown, how it's shaped you as an athletic trainer, and how it's been influential to your career.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, for the invitation and having me on this podcast. PPATS, to me and several of us, it just continues to grow into this fantastic educational society. You have this group of members that just want to keep giving and educating, and several of these members have influenced my career and educated me in some way or another. And for me, it makes me want to try and do the same for the next wave of young athletic trainers that are coming through. We're often reminded of this incredible story, this incredible history of how this society was established. And we recognize the efforts and sacrifices that were made, by a lot of people to make this society what it is today. The past and the present board members, they've done so much for PBATS, and it shows up on how strong the society is. And, Sam, I've seen you around these winter meetings, and I think you can see and feel the brotherhood and the pride that kind of walks in that room, and it's strong. And for me, it's just awesome to be a part of something that big. In regards to like the educational component, so many members are dedicated to educating young athletic trainers as well as the public. And we're the best in the world when it comes to this baseball sports medicine. And it's kind of our responsibility to share our knowledge with whoever wants to absorb it in baseball circles and medical communities, and high school and college students with some kind of interest. One of my favorite things about this educational component is the international internship program run by Rick Griffin. We have had several students come from Ireland and Japan, and it's just a joy to work with them and teach them and kind of pass on a little bit about what we know to get them kick-started in their careers.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to explain it. Like you said, seeing everybody at the winter meetings, there's so many men and women who are influential in PBATS and really just super interested in making sure the next generation of athletic trainers has the knowledge and skills and wherewithal to get the job done. So it's really just you guys paying it forward, which is awesome to see. Well, Matt, you're currently in your 5th season as the head athletic trainer with the Texas Rangers, having a great season in 2023 so far. We'll get into your career path and your day-to-day duties with the Rangers in a bit here. But first, I want to get started by sharing with our listeners some background information about you. So let's take it back to when you were young. Let the listeners know where you're from. Did you play sports growing up as a kid? And also where and when you found your passion for athletic training and sports medicine.
So I grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm a Gen Xer, so, this digital world that we're in now wasn't available to me. So I feel like I spent half my youth on a bike, and I played every sport I could get my hands on, baseball, football, basketball. If a hacky sack was around, I kicked it around, fishing, winter sports, skiing and snowboarding. So I tried a little bit of everything. I even did some rock climbing. But ultimately, my best skill set was found on a wrestling mat. So I liked a little bit of everything. And as far as my passion for athletic training, it probably came a little bit later than most people. Most of our members. I didn't really get hooked on any of this athletic training stuff until I took my first sports medicine class at New Mexico State University. I did some PT for my own injuries in high school, but I didn't really find the interest at that time. Kind of a funny story about how this passion kicked in. It was my second year of college. I was rooming with Chris Porterfield, who's the younger brother of Ron Porterfield. And I remember Ron came to our dorm one day, and he asked me what I was studying. And I told him I was studying astronomy. That's a whole different story. I'm a long ways from that right now. But he said, what? I know you like sports a lot. Why don't you try this sports medicine class? And I did, and that's where the passion kicked off. It just took one class for something to kind of kickstart me, and my brain kind of turned a little bit and said, this is what I like. This is for me. And really, it's amazing how easy college classes become when you're at peak interest. It's just I wanted more and more of it. I just wanted to keep doing it. And, all the classes, anatomy, human physiology, sports medicine, I couldn't get enough of those. And, during this process, in college, when I got into the sports medicine stuff, I ended up meeting a lot of current active Major League athletic trainers. Ron went there, Ken Crenshaw went there, Nate Lucero, Mike Sandoval, and a whole bunch of others that are no longer in the game, and even later Brian Baca. So it's a good school for athletic training there.
Yeah, that's interesting. We have, whether it's where you went to school or East Carolina, where Jamie Reed and a number of guys went to school. It's pretty interesting to see how a few of those athletic training programs really rise to prominence just because of the awesome success from all you guys. Speaking of success, you've been with the Rangers for almost 2 decades now. You've spent a ton of valuable time in baseball, really impressive career thus far. But we know everyone needs to get their start somewhere. Can you talk a bit about the early days in your career and how you broke into the game of baseball and got started?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't immediately, follow those guys out of college into baseball. I worked in a physical therapy clinic in Las Cruces, where New Mexico State is, and then another PT clinic in Albuquerque. The PT clinic in Albuquerque, I was lucky enough to work alongside a physical therapist and owner, Mary Lou Langford. And really, I got to mention this because she was the best soft tissue therapist I've been around, and she taught me a great deal about soft tissue work, which eventually I believe turned out to be my most valuable skill set, and it helped me a ton in baseball and advancing in baseball as well. But while I was working in the clinic, Ken and Ron, they tried to recruit me into the expansion Devil Rays organization, but I just wasn't ready. Didn't really want to do that. I was pretty happy with what I was doing. But eventually, at 29 years old, I felt like I needed some change. I guess compared to a lot of my colleagues, I was really late to the party with baseball. But I remember calling Ken Crenshaw, and I don't know if he remembers this story, but I called him and I said, hey, you've called a couple times trying to get me into this game, and I wasn't ready. I think I'd like to give it a shot now if possible. And I remember Ken telling me, there's nothing available right now, but, I'll keep you on the docket. I'll keep you in mind. Hung up, figured I'd just go back to the clinical work. I'm pretty sure it was the very next day. It was definitely no more than 2 days. He called me back and said, hey, after I talked to you, our rookie ball athletic trainer quit. So right away, my brain's thinking, this kind of sounds like it's meant to be. So Ken sets up a call with the farm director, Tom Foley. Tom gives me a call, and basically, it was a 1-minute interview, fastest interview ever, right? He basically said, if you're good enough for Ken, you're good enough for me. And that goes a long ways, to speak about what Ken is and his values and how much they trusted him. So that's pretty much how the early days got started for me. And being in a clinic for that long kind of left me a little lost in the training room. I showed up and wasn't familiar with the training room. You looked at the tables in there, and it looks like a mini surgical room, and I had to get reacquainted with all that. But the athletic trainers in the Rays system at that time were more than willing to catch me up and all things baseball, and it was real helpful. Got me going.
Yeah, and speaking of those guys who you said were able to catch you up and get you going, one you mentioned, Ken Crenshaw. He's been so influential on a number of, I would say half of the guests we've had on this podcast. Love to hear more from you about, some of those really accomplished athletic trainers you've worked with throughout your career. Just to name a few, obviously Ken Crenshaw, Ron Porterfield, Jamie Reed, Kevin Harmon, all really fantastic, practitioners and athletic trainers that you've worked with. Were there any other role models outside of those people who really showed you the ropes around the training room, clubhouse, and just the game of baseball in general?
Yeah, there's a long list of people, but the primary ones you mentioned, I'll start with Ron. I've known him a long time. We actually went to the same high school. And some of the things that I picked up from Ron, Ron's a grinder. He's the ultimate grinder. And anyone that's worked with him knows that. And, Ron was the type of guy that if 15 guys came in for some manual arm exercise, he was first on his feet and doing them. And if number 16 came in, he was going to give him the same quality work that he did the first 15, whether he was a prospect or not. That's just the way Ron worked. he said something that I remember really, really well when I first started. At the end of the day, he used to tell me, I'm tired, I'm beat, but I'd go home. And then I'd have my second day start. He had kids and they wanted to play catch, and he was never going to say no. And I decided that I was going to be that same person. My kids wanted to play catch and I was beat down. I'd never let them know that.
Yeah.
And I was never going to say no. So I picked up some of the grind that Ron has, and I'm happy that he kind of passed that along. He drank a lot more coffee than I did, so he kind of had a little boost.
Yeah.
But then, Ken Crenshaw is a true definition of grow or die. This guy, he's constantly in search of more. He knows that we only know a small fraction of what the human body can do, and he wants to learn it all. He wants to absorb it all, and he makes all those around him want to do the same thing as well. So that's what I picked up from Ken. You don't stop learning. A lot of stuff outside the box. Don't forget the important stuff that's inside the box, but keep growing. So that was the biggest thing I picked up from Ken. Then, Jamie's just one of the best persons I ever met. He's taught me a lot in my time with the Rangers. Most importantly is that relationships and people management is important. He's the best at that. I believe Jamie could be a GM, a politician, or he could probably go sell rocks and he'll be real successful at it. You've been around him. He's fantastic to be around, and I'm glad he chose an ATC to be, because that allowed me to cross paths with him. But just a great guy. And then, Kevin Harmon, working with him side by side, I learned the responsibilities as an assistant athletic trainer, and my role to make his job easier, his role to make Jamie's job easier. And then when I advanced, it was easier for me to kind of explain that and know the expectations from the assistants that I have. So they've all been really influential in helping me become what I am today, for sure.
Yeah, and it's no question that those men are some of the most influential people within PBATS and within the profession of athletic training in baseball. So it's not a surprise that they had fantastic advice for you on your way up. Now that you've been in the big leagues for so long, one of the most established athletic trainers in the game, if roles had reversed and you were starting out today, is there a specific skill, personality trait, or characteristic that you find super important in younger athletic trainers, and that things that you would give them advice for?
Yes, some of it I did, organically in college, at the high school settings, and basically what I would tell them is get yourself around a good certified athletic trainer and learn as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Get your hands on as many athletes as you can and learn what different tissue quality feels like. Learn how the body moves and how it works through the hands, and just practice. Get as much practice as you can, so you're kind of advanced when you get into those situations. I tell young people, get your hands on mom, dad, siblings, get your friends to get on the table and just kind of see what they feel like. It all adds up in the end, and it's going to make you. I think you kind of know how I feel about the soft tissue stuff. Mm-hmm. It'll make you better at the soft tissue stuff and kind of recognizing what the human body feels like and how it should move. So that's probably my biggest advice, is just practice, practice, practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've heard from a number of your colleagues and people across Major League Baseball that, you can read as much as you want in a textbook and take as many classes as you want, but really getting that practice on the human body is hugely important. So it's good to hear that from you as well. Speaking of things changing, baseball and sports medicine is changing very fast. Just of the size of the athletic training and performance staffs and everything, just the evolution is crazy to see these past couple of years. You've been around the game a really long time. You've seen the days when staffs were maybe just 1 or 2, 3 people at most. I'm interested to get your thoughts on the evolution of the athletic training staffs across baseball, and also how that benefits those working in the game today and going forward in the future.
Yeah, I think each organization kind of does what works for them. I think we're relatively small compared to some teams. Mm-hmm. We travel right now with 3 athletic trainers, including myself, 1 physical therapist, and 1 massage therapist. So I know some teams prefer to travel a little larger. But, there's a lot of specialty in baseball, and we have to be real strong in several aspects of our field. But I think we do a good job of that here. We prefer the smaller staff. We don't like downtime. We all like to be pretty busy. The evolution's, it's moving fast enough. Our players have a lot of access to their choice of strength coach, PTs, athletic trainers, massage therapists in the off season. So we need to be at the top of our game and make it easier for our players to kind of have a comfort level and a confidence level with us, when they transition back in. So the game's just getting bigger and bigger. And even the evolution of, training rooms and facilities. I've worked in athletic training rooms not much bigger than my bedroom back home growing up. And now we have this Taj Mahal here in Texas, and it's fantastic to work in. So it's all moving fast.
Mm-hmm. And shifting gears a bit more specific to the Rangers, one thing I'm super excited to talk to you about is the different phases of the Rangers ball club during your career. The Rangers have had multiple runs throughout your career to the playoffs, and you're in the midst of just a really good start to the 2023 season, definitely with playoff aspirations this year. I'd love to hear from you about, from an athletic training perspective, the differences and similarities in some of those successful teams, in 2010, 2011, going to the ALCS, World Series bursts as well. Is there something that makes teams special that you can share compared to when teams are kind of struggling?
Yeah. It's really interesting to be kind of on top of the world with those early teams, and then kind of see things dip when you're used to winning, and then kind of see a gradual rise back up where we're at now. But you can feel the energy of good teams. It's just it's hard to define exactly what it is, but you could just feel it. You could feel it in the clubhouse, in the training room, and on the field. And both these teams had it. The 2010-11 team, 12 teams. And this team, they have a lot of energy. They're similar in the way that they both have deep lineups, and they're really fun to watch. Those older teams were kind of threatening teams for sure. I don't think a lot of teams and a lot of clubs enjoyed coming to play us here with that lineup, and sometimes Nelson Cruz was hitting seventh. But I also don't think they liked coming to play here in 100-degree temperatures at 7:05 at night.
Sure.
But I think the biggest difference between these two teams is, those teams had a lot of fun back then. I was just telling my GM, Chris Young, that if we lost a game back then, the players still had a little bit of fun because they were pretty sure nobody was going to beat us the next day. And if they lost twice, they definitely weren't going to lose three times. It was out of the question to lose three in a row. So they had a little more fun. This team is a little more intense, a little more on the serious side. We can win 5 in a row here, and if we lose that one, it's not going to be fun. They're locked in, and they're angry. They don't expect to lose. So those are the biggest difference. But both teams are definitely a whole lot of fun to be around.
Yeah, and much like building a successful team on the field, you guys in Texas have done exactly that in the athletic training room. Between yourself, Jamie Reed, obviously an icon in the athletic training profession, and the others on your staff. One thing that stands out to me as someone who's got to know you guys over the past decade or more than that is the continuity and the consistency of having the same people in that room for many years. What do you credit for kind of keeping your staff together when so much turnover happens across the league all the time?
I think there's a lot of variables that can be answered to that question. Some of it comes down to we're treated well in this organization. We really like the organization, so I think guys like to stick around here. But internally, we complement each other really well. We blend well together. We work well together. We recognize a common daily goal, trying to get players on the field to help us win. I think we all enjoy how our communication is, and we trust each other, and there's no side agendas. All this kind of makes for a pretty good work environment for us. And I think Jamie probably set the tone for this some time back, and Kevin Harmon continued with that, and I like to think I'm continuing with that now. But it's just a really good work environment, and sometimes that's just hard to leave. Maybe you're not sure the grass is greener on the other side when things are pretty good where you're at. So we enjoy working together. We actually enjoy time away from the field together as well, which says a lot for the group. But I think that's the biggest part of it.
Yeah, and I know it's you mentioned Jamie Reed, and for those who do know him, myself included, tough to have a bad time when you're around a guy like that. He really is one of the best people out there. Speaking of the atmosphere there and you're in the working environment, I'd like to get into a bit about the day-to-day duties as the head athletic trainer for the Rangers. A lot of our listeners might be familiar with athletic training in general, what you do in the training room before and after games, but there's definitely a lot more that goes into the day-to-day of someone in your position. Can you elaborate a bit about what a normal in-season day looks like from start to finish during the big league season?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. I think we could probably do a whole other podcast on that alone.
Of course, yeah.
No 2 days are the same. Sometimes they're not even close to similar. But that's also one of the beautiful things about this job. I don't come to work with an exact itinerary of what I'm going to do, and I really like that. My favorite days are the ones where I can walk into the training room and work on players and stay away from my computer and phone. But those days are practically a unicorn. So in my role, conversations and communication is a big part of the day. But say today, this is kind of what I would expect a day to look like today after we finish the podcast. I'll probably talk to the front office and the manager early in the day about, any daily action, player updates, new injuries, player availability for the game tonight, and really any concerns, for today's workout and game. And before players arrive, I'll answer emails, make some calls, and typical stuff that we all do. But when the players arrive, there's a lot of conversations on a whole variety of issues that might be going on. So I'm basically spending a good part of my day just gathering intel and figuring out what a player can do and can't do that particular day. Basically, we spend a lot of time prepping players for the workout and prepping them for the game. But on any given day, I can be driving to work, and one phone call can really change the course of the day. Maybe a player needs a referral or an MRI, or there might have been an injury. You wake up with a kink in the neck, and then that just creates a whole lot more conversations, and your directions kind of change because of that.
No, that's super interesting. And I'm also interested to learn, when it comes to the off season, are your days more office based? Are you in the Arlington area all year? Share with the listeners a bit about what the off season days look like for someone in your position as well.
Yeah, so the off season is definitely lighter. We do come in. It seems like off seasons get a little busier and busier, but with this new facility, we have more players wanting to work out here, and we actually like that. We like our players to kind of remain with us because we get to interact with them and see what they're doing. And then come spring training, we have a really good idea of what they're ready for and what they can and can't do. But, it gets a little busier. Sometimes players end the season a little banged up, or they have surgery and they go off to their own cities. So we got to pay a lot of attention to their rehab and get them set up with different rehabs and follow through with the notes and make sure the rehabs are going in the right direction. So it's a little bit busier, but we kind of rotate sometimes through here. If a guy has something to do, some family stuff to do, or vacation, we get that done too. So that's our downtime, and we recognize that it's important for us to recharge during that time as well.
Yeah. And one of those, during your working hours and mostly in the season, a lot of your colleagues have mentioned that one of their most valuable skills and crucial skills in handling the day-to-day aspects and stresses of your job is really communication. Do you find that communicating with both your younger staff and front office staff is one of the most important skills you guys have as athletic trainers?
Yeah, absolutely. Without good communication, you can easily get lost in this industry. I've always talked to our younger guys about gathering really pertinent information and passing that information across appropriate lines, and how necessary that is. But I also talk to them about the delivery. You don't want to be long-winded and give a full story on something. You want to pass across the important information and make sure it's a good, strong, confident delivery. If you're stressed out about your delivery, it's going to come across in how you pass that information. So I try to teach that you just kind of make sure you give the information, make sure you're confident in what you're telling, the front office or who you're speaking to, and it should work out a lot better with that.
Yeah. And on a similar note, in terms of your skills and your work on a day-to-day basis, you've been the head athletic trainer for a handful of years now with the Rangers. I'm wondering, is more of your work hands-on these days versus communicating upstairs with Jamie Reed in the front office, communicating with minor league coordinators and your staff in the minor leagues? How do you find a good balance between what you love to do and working hands-on with players and also the administrative work that comes with your job?
Yeah, that's the challenging thing. So any gap in my day, where I'm not doing admin work, I'm going to be working with somebody. I actually seek it out sometimes because I love doing it. But as the job description goes, the admin is a heavy part of that, and the communication is a heavy part of that. So there's a lot of times that I'll be in the training room trying to get some stuff done, and I may get pulled from that, or, I can't move on to the next guy because I know I have to be somewhere else in the manager's office or the GM's office. So it's part of the job. We're hired to kind of pass the information, and we recognize that that's it. In a perfect world, I wish I could do a lot more of the training room stuff, but I'm happy that I have some real quality guys in that training room, and I can leave the training room behind and know everything's going to get done just the way I'd like to do it, and I trust those guys, and we move on.
And have you found, to piggyback back off that, have you found that, in working with so many different people throughout your career, when there's a clash in styles of how people approach athletic training, have you found any issues there, or is it pretty much common that, people have their ways, they do different things within the training room, but you guys all, work to the common goal and find a way to work together?
You said it absolutely right. The common goal is the most important. How we get there, is up to the person that's actually working with the player. We all have different styles, and they're all good styles. And I think these guys need to go ahead and do what they feel is best. They each have their different techniques. And, the old adage is there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. Well, there is in this. There's a lot of ways to get to the same point, So I let these guys do what they feel is necessary because I trust them. But as far as clashing, I don't think we really have that. If there's ever anything, it's a discussion, and those are easily resolved. We've never had any real conflict. So, yeah.
And outside of the training room and your staff with the Rangers, something I find super interesting is kind of the relationships between athletic trainers across the league and within PBATs. You mentioned a number of people: Ken Crenshaw, Ron Porterfield, Nate Lucero, a lot of people you got, a lot of advice and became close with. I'm wondering, as a head athletic trainer now and someone who's been in the position for a while, how have relationships changed or formed with people at other teams? Do you speak with other head athletic trainers across the league, get together, when you're on the road? I'm wondering how those relationships kind of go forward throughout each season.
Yeah, you meet so many athletic trainers, and obviously we have the same interests, so it's easy to kind of develop some common ground. But I've met so many guys that I know I'm going to be talking to long after I leave this game, especially the names we did speak of. But, a lot of times athletic trainers meet out on the field during batting practice. You get to know one another. We play, a lot of teams more often than others, so you get to know some guys a little better than others. But you establish some really good relationships. It's nice to see these guys off the field in winter meetings, and sometimes you have a beer with them and get to know them. So you meet some really cool people, and not just athletic trainers. In this industry, I've met a ton of coaches that I'm still friends with that are no longer with us, and a lot of ex-players. So you come across a lot of people that you develop solid relationships with.
And one of those guys who we've mentioned a handful of times on this show so far, who you have a great relationship with, is Jamie Reed. Jamie has had a massive impact on a number of successful athletic trainers in baseball all across the league, from yourself to Ron Porterfield to I could name, the list goes on forever, from his time in Baltimore, Tampa Bay, like you mentioned, now Texas for so long. Can you share with the listeners, what it's like working with Jamie, a future PBATS Hall of Famer for sure, and you've worked with him for so many years, and to share how his impact can be seen throughout the game of baseball and also just in the profession of athletic training?
Yeah, I've been with JMO for 18 years now, and I just love having him around here and working with him. He's the absolute best. I couldn't have asked for a better mentor myself. I've been real fortunate, real lucky. And our minor league athletic trainers as well. He still spends a lot of time around those guys and kind of helping them develop into great big league athletic trainers. So anyone who's been around JMO, you included, know what a special person this is and how accomplished he is in the game. And he's the kind of guy that so many athletic trainers strive to be. He's just, I can't say enough about JMO.
Mm-hmm. And I know outside of Jamie Reed and a couple other guys we mentioned, you're surrounded with an amazing staff in Texas. Obviously, from top to bottom, you need everybody involved to get the job done, from a major league level to the Dominican complex and all the affiliates. So I want to give you a couple minutes here, some time to recognize your colleagues and your staff throughout the sports medicine department with the Rangers that help you guys get the job done each day.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, assistant athletic trainers, Jacob Newbern and Sean Fields, fantastic at what they do. Our physical therapist, Regan Wong, again, like I mentioned, we all work so well together. Massage therapist, Raul Cardenas, who is always happy to lend a hand in the training room as we need. Our strength coaches, Jose Vasquez and Al Sandoval, we all have a really, really good working relationship with those guys as well, which is absolutely necessary in this industry. You have to be tight with your strength coaches. Mm-hmm. Our performance dietitian, Katie McInnes, obviously we've mentioned Jamie Reed. I definitely cannot leave out Dr. Keith Meister and his assistant, Whitney Wendt, fantastic in helping us move along as we need them, and their entire staff over at TMI as well. But I got to mention also our front office. JD preceded Chris Young, and now Chris Young, and working with those guys, they've made our jobs easier. They trust us, they have confidence in our decisions, and they allow us to do what we're hired to do, and that just makes coming to work all that more pleasant as well. And me myself, I need a good support staff. Any athletic trainer does in this industry. We're gone so much, so my family's my real support staff. Regina, Madison, Andres, and Max, they live on the other end of this crazy career of mine, and sure, they've supported me through it, and I love them for that, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, clearly, you guys are doing a great job in Texas, and just a great staff over there, and always a pleasure to watch you guys do what you do. Well, Matt, I appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining the show. To wrap things up, we're gonna finish with a quick Q&A segment that we call Extra Bases. So I'm going to ask you 4 quick questions to help you share some insight into some of your favorite things about athletic training in baseball. So we will kick it off at first base. What is your favorite athletic training room outside of your home park to work in the big leagues?
Tampa Bay.
Okay, we've had a couple people say that, and that's becoming, between Tampa Bay and Atlanta, that's becoming a couple popular answers there. So kudos to those guys for setting up the room the way everybody likes it. Moving on to second base, what is your favorite Major League Baseball stadium to watch a game from the dugout?
I like watching a game from PNC Park. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah, probably our most common answer is PNC. You can't beat the skyline and the bridges in the background. Really an awesome place to see a game. Moving on to third base here, outside of baseball, do you have a favorite city to visit on the road, and also why you enjoy it so much?
San Diego, primarily weather, some good restaurants there, nice downtown scene. But, I would say weather. It's California pays that weather tax, and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, no question. That's a very common answer as well. Moving on to home plate, last question of the day. We've heard some really interesting answers here from a lot of your colleagues and men and women across the league. When you first started and broke into the big leagues, did you have a welcome to the big leagues moment sometime in your first year as an athletic trainer?
It came late in the year. I think my big welcome to the big leagues was getting to the World Series. That's pretty awesome right there, huh?
Yeah, that's a pretty unbeatable moment. And you guys had a heck of a run back in those days. Well, Matt, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining the show. And we wish you and your staff and everyone in Texas best of luck throughout the rest of the 2023 season.
Thank you, Sam. It was fun. Appreciate it.
And that wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening to Inside Athletic Training, a podcast from the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society, a show for athletic training students, educators, and professionals who want to learn more about life as an athletic trainer in major and minor league baseball. If you've enjoyed the show, head over to pbats.com to gain access to other free resources. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, thanks again for listening.